Something has crossed a threshold, not in rhetoric, but in posture, and this time the change is visible in the skies rather than buried in quiet repositioning. U.S. combat aircraft have surged forward into advanced positions, tightening the arc of pressure around Iran. And Tehran has responded by activating its air defense network at elevated readiness across multiple regions. This is the phase of confrontation, where time compresses, where decisions that once had hours now have minutes, and where the margin for miscalculation becomes dangerously thin. Public statements still speak of restraint and options, but the operational reality unfolding in the air tells a story of systems coming online, sensors sweeping continuously, and pilots flying profiles that are no longer theoretical. This is not a drill. This is what escalation looks like before the first shot is fired. The surge of U.S. jets forward is not defined by a single movement, but by a pattern that military planners immediately recognize. Fighters reposition closer to potential operating areas. Refueling aircraft extend loiter times and shift orbits to support higher sortie rates. Surveillance platforms adjust coverage to provide persistent tracking rather than periodic snapshots. Together, these changes transform air power from presence into readiness. Think about what that means. Aircraft that once required days to mass can now generate combat power within hours. That shift alone is enough to force a response. Tehran's response has been immediate and technical, rather than theatrical. Air defense systems across Iran have been activated at heightened alert, with radar arrays operating continuously rather than cyclically. Interceptor batteries are repositioned to cover new approach vectors. Command and control nodes shift to hardened modes, prioritizing redundancy and rapid engagement authorization. This is not about signaling to an audience. It is about survival in an environment where warning time has collapsed. Air defenses are Iran's shield against a threat it knows it cannot match symmetrically. Air defense activation is a significant step because it changes the psychology of everyone involved. When systems are live and operators are on edge, the cost of hesitation appears higher than the cost of action. A blip on a radar screen is no longer just data. It is a potential decision point. False alarms become more dangerous. Training scenarios bleed into operational reality. Think about the strain this places on human judgment. Machines may track targets, but people decide when to engage. The U.S. jet surge forward is designed to exploit exactly that pressure. Forward positioning shortens response times, increases flexibility, and allows commanders to apply or withdraw pressure rapidly. But it also increases the risk of encounters that neither side intends. Aircraft operating in proximity to contested airspace invite tracking, shadowing, and electronic probing. Each interaction becomes a test of resolve. Each test carries risk. From Tehran's perspective, the activation of air defenses is not an act of aggression. It is an acknowledgement that the air domain is becoming the primary arena of risk. Missiles matter, naval power matters, but air power is what can strike quickly, precisely, and repeatedly. Iran understands that if escalation occurs, it will likely begin in the air, with efforts to suppress defenses, degrade command nodes, and establish control. That understanding drives the urgency behind activating systems now, rather than later. Iran's air defense network is layered and diverse, combining older systems with newer capabilities and extensive use of mobility and concealment. Activation does not mean all systems are exposed simultaneously. It means readiness levels increase, crews move to stations, and engagement protocols are reviewed. Mobile systems reposition frequently to avoid targeting. Decoys are deployed. Electronic countermeasures are tested. This is a dance designed to complicate an adversary's planning and buy time if the worst occurs. At the same time, Iran is careful not to overreact visibly. Public messaging emphasizes defense and sovereignty. Officials speak of protection rather than retaliation. This restraint is intentional. Tehran understands that overtly aggressive rhetoric could be used to justify preemptive action. Instead, it relies on posture. Activated defenses speak for themselves. They signal readiness without escalation. For U.S. planners, the surge forward of jets offers both leverage and risk. It reassures allies, deters adversaries, and demonstrates capability. It also commits resources and narrows options. Once aircraft are forward, pulling them back can be interpreted as de-escalation or as weakness, depending on perception. Think about the bind this creates. Every move forward increases pressure. Every move back invites interpretation. The air domain is uniquely unforgiving in this regard. Unlike naval deployments, which unfold over days, air interactions happen at speed. A fighter can cross hundreds of miles in minutes. A radar lock can be achieved in seconds. Electronic interference can be mistaken for preparation. In such an environment, clarity matters, but clarity is often absent. Signals are ambiguous by nature. That ambiguity becomes dangerous when defenses are live. The surge of U.S. jets also signals readiness for sustained operations, not just presence. Sustained air operations require logistics, maintenance, refueling, and command integration. These are not improvised. They reflect planning and authorization. Think about the implication. Someone has decided that the risk of not being ready outweighs the risk of escalation caused by readiness itself. Iran's leadership is acutely aware of this calculus. Activating air defenses is a way to restore balance, to reintroduce cost into any potential strike plan. Air defenses do not guarantee protection, but they complicate operations, increase risk to pilots, and force adversaries to commit more assets. In deterrence terms, they raise the price of action. The regional response mirrors this tension. Neighboring states quietly increase their own air defense readiness, integrating sensors and reviewing engagement protocols. Civil aviation authorities monitor airspace carefully, prepared for disruptions. Energy infrastructure operators assess vulnerability. These are not reactions to headlines, they are responses to posture. When jets surge forward and defenses activate, the region feels it immediately. Markets sense it too. Energy prices fluctuate on perception rather than fact. Insurance premiums adjust. Shipping routes are reconsidered. None of this requires a strike to occur. The mere activation of systems and forward movement of jets is enough to alter behavior globally. Think about the reach of air power. It shapes decisions far beyond the battlefield. The psychological burden of sustained alert is heavy on both sides. For U.S. pilots, forward deployment means flying closer to contested airspace, operating under constant monitoring, and knowing that mistakes can escalate quickly. For Iranian operators, continuous alert means long hours, high stress, and the knowledge that a wrong call could trigger catastrophe. Fatigue becomes a factor. Over time, the risk of error increases. This is where escalation often emerges, not from intent, but from interaction. Neither side may want conflict. Both may believe they are acting defensively. Yet the interaction between forward-surging jets and activated air defenses creates conditions where incidents become more likely. A close intercept, an aggressive maneuver, a misinterpreted signal, each carries the potential to spiral. Iran's fear is not abstract, it is rooted in experience. Previous confrontations have shown how quickly air incidents can escalate once defenses are live and aircraft operate near red lines. Tehran remembers these lessons. That memory informs its caution and its activation decision now. For Washington, the surge forward is also a test of Iranian reactions, a test of readiness, a test of resolve. By moving jets forward, planners can observe how Iran responds, which systems activate, which areas receive priority. This intelligence is valuable, but gathering it increases tension. Think about the trade-off. Information gained now may reduce uncertainty later, but it raises risk in the present. The activation of air defenses also affects diplomatic space. Once systems are live, stepping back becomes harder. Leaders must justify standing down. Operators must be told to relax. Each step toward de-escalation risks appearing weak or unprepared. This is the trap of readiness. It creates its own momentum. Iran tries to manage this by framing activation as precautionary rather than reactive. It emphasizes that defenses are raised because of increased foreign activity, not because Iran seeks confrontation. This framing matters domestically and internationally. It preserves the narrative of defense while maintaining readiness. The U.S. narrative mirrors this. Officials describe jet movements as routine, defensive, or precautionary, but routine does not require synchronized surges, extended refueling orbits, and persistent surveillance. Think about the discrepancy. What is described as routine would not look routine to an adversary. As days pass with jets forward and defenses active, normalization sets in. What initially felt extraordinary begins to feel expected. This is dangerous. Normalization masks risk. Systems remain on edge even as attention drifts. History shows that prolonged periods of high alert often end not with deliberate action, but with mistakes made under fatigue. The strategic ambiguity at the heart of this standoff remains unresolved. What is the end state? Deterrence, coercion, signaling. Iran's air defense activation suggests it believes deterrence is under strain. The U.S. jet surge suggests planners want options close at hand. These positions are not inherently incompatible, but proximity makes reconciliation harder. Air power compresses escalation like no other domain. Missiles are fast, but aircraft offer persistence and adaptability. They can probe, pressure, and strike repeatedly. That flexibility makes them powerful tools of deterrence and coercion, but also dangerous catalysts. Once airborne, aircraft create interaction. Interaction creates risk. The coming period will test discipline. It will test whether pilots can operate professionally under pressure, whether operators can distinguish signals from noise, whether leaders can resist the urge to act simply because they are now in position to do so. This is not a test anyone advertises. It unfolds quietly in cockpits, command centers, and radar rooms. Iran's activation of air defenses is a rational response to a perceived increase in threat. It does not mean war is inevitable. It means Tehran is unwilling to be caught unprepared. The US surge of jets forward is a rational response to uncertainty. It does not mean war is intended. It means options are being preserved. Two rational actions collide, and the collision itself generates danger. As this standoff continues, every additional movement will be scrutinized. A change in flight patterns, a new radar mode, a shift in alert status, each becomes a data point in a narrative of escalation. Analysts will debate intent, commanders will debate thresholds, leaders will debate messaging, all while systems remain live. The greatest risk now is not that someone wants war, but that systems designed for war are active and interacting. Once that happens, the line between deterrence and provocation blurs. Think about how thin that line is when jets surge forward and air defenses activate simultaneously. For now, the skies remain quiet. No missiles are launched, no aircraft cross borders. But quiet at this stage is deceptive. It is the quiet of readiness, not the quiet of peace. Underneath it, engines are running, radars are sweeping, and decisions are being rehearsed mentally, over and over again. As US jets continue to operate forward and Tehran keeps its air defenses active, the region enters one of its most precarious phases. Stability depends on restraint, professionalism, and luck. One misjudged intercept, one false alarm, one technical glitch. Any of these could turn preparation into action. The world watches cautiously, markets remain nervous, allies prepare quietly. Diplomacy continues, but its influence diminishes as military timelines compress. Words move slowly, aircraft do not. This is why the activation of air defenses and the surge of jets matter. Not because they guarantee conflict, but because they reduce the space in which mistakes can be absorbed. As long as systems remain live and forces remain forward, escalation is not inevitable, but it is always possible. And in moments like this, possibility is enough to change everything.